My friends, there is a power within you, greater than any circumstance around you, the very mind of Christ. It is the divine intelligence that spoke worlds into being, the creative spirit that heals, restores, and transforms all it touches. This infinite mind is your mind now. It beats your heart, breathes through your lungs, and whispers eternal wisdom in the silence of your soul. When you think from the mind of Christ, you rise above limitation. You no longer beg for strength, you realize you are strength. You no longer chase peace, you radiate peace. You no longer look to the world for answers, for the kingdom of God is within you, waiting for recognition. Today, I invite you to awaken to that divine center within, to cast aside every thought of fear, doubt, and separation, and to step boldly into the truth that you and the Christ mind are one. When you know this, truly know it, nothing can stand against you. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone, every problem a revelation of power. So let us open our hearts, lift our vision, and declare with conviction, I think the thoughts of God, I live in the wisdom of Christ, I am free, limitless, and divine. Awaken to the divine presence. Within this is the first and most sacred step in realizing the mind of Christ. The great truth, often hidden in plain sight, is that God is not far away. The infinite is not separate from you. The same spirit that animated Jesus, the same boundless intelligence that guides the stars in their courses, breathes within your very being. To awaken to the divine presence is to shift from living as a creature of circumstance to living as a channel of infinite power. It is to know, beyond all intellect, that within you is the kingdom of heaven, not as a future reward, but as a present reality waiting to be recognized. This awakening begins in stillness. The noise of the outer world must yield to the whisper of the inner word. When you close your eyes and turn your attention inward, you begin to sense that quiet, luminous awareness that is never disturbed by change. This is the divine presence. It is calm amid chaos, strength amid struggle, wisdom amid confusion. It is what Jesus meant when he said, "The Father and I are one." He did not speak of an exclusive relationship. He revealed a universal truth that the same divine essence that lived in him lives in you, awaiting your recognition and acceptance. To awaken means to stop identifying yourself with limitation. Most people live as though they are merely flesh and blood, tossed between fear and desire, bound by habit and past experience. But you are far more than this body and mind. You are spirit eternal, indestructible, and radiant. You are not trying to become divine. You are divine now, though your awareness may be dimmed by false beliefs. Every thought of separation, every idea that says, "I am weak, I am small, I am alone," is but a shadow cast by ignorance. The light of truth dispels it instantly when you affirm, "I am one with the infinite life and wisdom of God." In this state of awareness, you begin to sense life differently. What once appeared as obstacles now reveal themselves as lessons of the soul. What once frightened you becomes an opportunity to exercise divine faith. When you awaken to the presence within, you no longer seek external validation, for you rest in the assurance that all supply, all power, and all guidance flow from the divine center of your being. The outer world mirrors your inner consciousness. Change your awareness, and the world changes in response. This is the law of life. The inner creates the outer. To awaken to the divine presence is to experience a profound inner shift from fear to faith, from effort to effortless flow. You begin to notice the harmony that underlies all things. The same intelligence that keeps the sun in its place and the tides in rhythm now governs your affairs with precision and order. You realize that there is no confusion in divine mind, and since divine mind is your mind in truth, there can be no confusion in you. You simply rest in the knowing that the presence within you knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. You may ask, how do I awaken? The answer is not through striving, but through remembrance. You awaken by turning your thought lovingly toward God in the quiet moments of the day. You can do this wherever you are, while walking, working, or resting. Silently declare, God is here, and I am one with this divine life. Feel the truth of it. Let the words sink beyond intellect into the depths of your heart. Each time you do this, a veil lifts. Each time you remember, the light grows brighter. Gradually, you find that the presence is not something you enter and leave. It becomes your permanent awareness. When challenges come, and they will do not fall back into the old belief of separation. Say to yourself, this too is an opportunity for the divine to express through me. Refuse to react with fear or anger. Instead, affirm quietly, peace, be still. This sacred phrase stills the storms of the mind, just as it did on the Sea of Galilee. The same Christ power that calmed the waters then will calm the turbulence of your circumstances now, for it is the same presence acting through the same law. As you dwell in this realization, your life begins to take on new meaning. People sense something different in you, a quiet confidence, a radiance that seems unshaken by outer events. This is not arrogance. It is divine assurance. You have discovered that your source is within you, not outside. You no longer beg life for blessings. You radiate blessings, knowing that you and life are one. You see the divine in others as easily as in yourself. For once your eyes are opened, you recognize the Christ in every face, every heart, every form of life. To awaken to the divine presence within is to step into freedom. You are no longer a victim of chance, but a conscious creator, guided by the infinite wisdom of God. Every moment becomes holy, every breath a prayer. You move, think, and act as an instrument of divine intelligence. This is the beginning of true transformation, the awakening of the mind of Christ within you, leading you to the realization that heaven is not a distant realm, but the state of awareness where you know, without doubt, that times God and I are one. Asterisk. To think from the infinite, not the limited self, is to step into the consciousness of divine power that transcends every boundary of human thought. The limited self is the small sense of I that lives in fear, worry, and comparison, the personality conditioned by time, circumstance, and memory. It looks at life through the narrow lens of past experiences and says, I can't, it's too hard, or it's impossible. But the infinite self, the Christ mind within, knows no such boundaries. It is pure awareness, unconditioned by fear, untouched by failure, unconfined by circumstance. To think from the infinite means to align your thought with the truth that all things are possible to the mind that knows its oneness with God. This shift does not happen by accident. It is an act of spiritual choice. Every day, you are invited to choose whether to think from your limitation or from your divine identity. When you identify with the limited self, your world contracts. You see only obstacles, not opportunities, only problems, not possibilities. But the moment you lift your thought to the infinite, the entire landscape of your mind changes. You begin to think as God thinks, with certainty, love, and creative vision. You begin to feel the vastness of life moving through you, expressing as you, and working for you in ways beyond comprehension. The infinite does not struggle, it simply times is. Asterisk. When you think from that center, you move from striving to allowing. You cease to force outcomes and begin to let divine intelligence unfold its perfect plan. The limited self is always anxious, for it believes it must control everything. The infinite self rests in trust, knowing that life itself is the power that sustains and directs all creation. When Jesus said, "It is not I, but the Father within me that doeth the works," he revealed this eternal principle that the true source of all wisdom, healing, and manifestation flows from the infinite mind within. Thinking from the infinite requires a new inner discipline. You must train yourself to reject thoughts of lack, fear, or defeat as lies about your true nature. Whenever such thoughts arise, and they will affirm silently, "That is not the truth of me. I am a child of the infinite. I think with the mind of God." This simple declaration lifts your vibration and restores you to your rightful awareness. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you begin to notice a calm confidence emerging, a serene strength that does not depend on outer approval or circumstance. To think from the infinite is also to realize that you are not separate from the good you desire. The limited mind believes it must earn, chase, or struggle for what it wants. But the infinite mind knows that all good already exists in consciousness. The law of manifestation is not about attracting something outside yourself, but about revealing what has always been true within you. When you think from the infinite, you cease to beg and begin to affirm. You say, "All that the Father has is mine now." You dwell in the feeling of having already received, and through the law of correspondence, your outer life begins to mirror that inner conviction. From this higher state of thought, you begin to see life as a continuous expression of divine order. What once seemed random or unfair now reveals an underlying pattern of wisdom and purpose. Even challenges become opportunities to deepen your faith and strengthen your awareness of the infinite. When difficulties arise, you no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What divine good is seeking to emerge through this?" This simple shift in perspective transforms suffering into strength and confusion into clarity. The key is to remain conscious of who you truly are, a spiritual being expressing through human experience. You are not the thoughts that come and go. You are the awareness that observes them. When you rest in that awareness, you are resting in the infinite. You begin to sense a vast, quiet presence at the center of your being, the same presence that guided Jesus, the prophets, the mystics, and all who awakened to divine truth. That presence is not partial or selective. It is whole, universal, and limitless. When you think from it, you draw upon infinite intelligence, infinite creativity, and infinite love. The limited self seeks recognition. The infinite self gives it. The limited self clings to control. The infinite self releases and trusts. The limited self fears loss. The infinite self knows that nothing real can ever be taken away. This awareness brings freedom. Freedom from anxiety, from competition, from doubt. You realize that you have never been separate from God, and therefore, you have never been separate from peace, abundance, or joy. When you think from the infinite, your words carry power. Your thoughts become living forces that shape reality. You begin to speak with authority, declaring truth instead of describing appearances. If a challenge arises, you do not say, "This is too great." You affirm, "There is one power, one presence, one intelligence at work, and it is working perfectly through me now." The moment you claim this truth, divine order begins to operate, rearranging the outer conditions of your life to match your inner conviction. To think from the infinite is to think as Christ thought, with absolute faith in the unseen and complete surrender to divine will. It is the end of limitation, for the infinite knows no boundaries. It is the end of fear, for perfect love casts out fear. It is the beginning of a life guided by intuition, filled with creative inspiration and anchored in unshakable peace. When you think from the infinite, you no longer merely believe in God, you times think as times God thinks. You see the world through the eyes of divine love, and in that vision, every limitation dissolves, every need is fulfilled, and every moment reveals the infinite glory of the Christ mind within you. To renew your mind through spiritual imagination is to rediscover the creative power that God placed within you from the beginning of time. The imagination is not a mere faculty for daydreaming or fantasy. It is the divine workshop of the mind, the sacred space where thoughts take form and become reality. Every great achievement, every healing, every inspired act begins first as an image in the mind. When you learn to use your imagination as a spiritual instrument rather than a tool of worry and limitation, you unlock the power to remake your world according to divine law. Spiritual imagination is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It allows you to see beyond appearances and perceive the perfection that already exists in the realm of spirit. The world around you is nothing more than crystallized thought. What you see today was once a pattern of belief impressed upon the mind yesterday. When you renew your mind through spiritual imagination, you begin to form new, higher patterns, divine ideas that reshape both your inner and outer world. Scripture tells us, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." This renewal happens not through effort or willpower, but through the sacred act of seeing differently, imagining differently, and believing differently. Most people use their imagination unconsciously to reinforce fear, doubt, and limitation. They replay scenes of failure, dwell on problems, and mentally rehearse worst-case scenarios. Each time they do this, they give these images emotional power, and according to the law of mind, what is impressed is expressed. But you can reverse this process. You can take the same creative force and turn it toward truth, light, and love. Begin to imagine the life you desire as already accomplished. See yourself radiant, confident, and full of divine wisdom. Feel the joy of answered prayer, the peace of harmony, and the abundance of divine supply. As you sustain these inner pictures with feeling and faith, the subconscious mind accepts them as reality, and the outer world begins to conform to them with mathematical precision. To renew your mind through imagination means to think as God thinks, to see beyond what is and into what can be. The Christ mind does not deny appearances, it transcends them. When Jesus looked upon the sick, he did not see sickness, he saw wholeness. When he faced lack, he saw abundance. When he met fear, he saw love. His divine vision was rooted in spiritual imagination, the ability to perceive the eternal truth behind the temporary illusion. When you cultivate this same vision, you begin to walk in the awareness that everything visible is but a shadow of the invisible good waiting to be revealed. Imagination is the womb of creation. Every prayer you make, every affirmation you speak, becomes living when clothed in the garment of feeling and image. To simply repeat words without vision is like planting seeds on dry ground. But when you visualize with emotion and faith, you water those seeds with the living essence of spirit. Imagine yourself already living the truth you desire to experience healthy, peaceful, prosperous, and free. Do not force the image. Allow it to unfold naturally as a joyful knowing. The more real it becomes in your inner world, the faster it manifests in your outer world. The renewing of the mind also involves cleansing the imagination of false images, those of fear, guilt, and limitation that have been impressed upon you by the world. You must gently but firmly replace them with divine images of love, harmony, and perfection. If your mind presents you with pictures of failure, do not resist them with fear, simply replace them. Declare inwardly, "This is not the truth of me. I am an expression of divine intelligence. My life is governed by order, beauty, and success." Then visualize yourself walking calmly and confidently in that truth. In time, these new images will dominate your consciousness, and the old patterns will dissolve like mist before the morning sun. Renewing the mind through imagination also means training your emotional nature. Emotion is the fuel of creation. Whatever image you feel deeply and consistently, you magnetize into form. This is why spiritual imagination must be guided by divine love. Love purifies the imagination and aligns it with God's will. When your inner pictures are filled with the light of love, not greed, pride, or fear, they carry a divine authority that cannot fail. Each image becomes a living prayer, a silent decree of truth that must manifest according to universal law. The practice is simple but profound. Take time each day to quiet your mind. Close your eyes and turn your attention inward. Imagine the presence of divine light surrounding and filling you. See yourself radiant with health, guided by wisdom, supported by abundance. Picture every situation in your life harmonizing, every relationship bathed in understanding and love. As you do this, you are not pretending or escaping reality, you are creating it. You are reprogramming your subconscious mind to align with divine truth. You are renewing your mind, and as Paul declared, you are being transformed. The more you engage this practice, the more your consciousness begins to vibrate with higher patterns. Old fears lose their grip. You begin to walk with calm assurance, knowing that what you imagine with God becomes inevitable. Life unfolds with a new sense of harmony and grace because your inner images are now aligned with the infinite pattern of perfection. You have renewed your mind and opened the channel for divine creativity to flow through you. To renew your mind through spiritual imagination is to awaken the artist of the soul. You paint your world with the colors of divine thought. You create from the unseen substance of spirit, shaping your destiny with every image you hold in faith. As you do this, you realize that imagination is not a human faculty, but a divine power, the very voice of God creating through you. And when your imagination is filled with light, your life becomes a living masterpiece of truth, beauty, and infinite possibility. To speak the word of power and expect divine results is to understand the creative authority that has been given to you as a spiritual being. Every word you speak, whether silently in thought or aloud in expression, carries a vibration that shapes reality. Words are not empty sounds. They are containers of power, channels through which divine energy flows into form. When you speak with faith, conviction, and spiritual understanding, your words become instruments of creation, aligning your outer world with the divine ideas you hold within. The Bible declares, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue," and those words reveal one of the greatest truths of existence, that your speech, guided by the mind of Christ, can lift you into harmony, abundance, and peace, or bind you in limitation if misused. To speak the word of power means, first, to realize that your word is one with the word of God. In the beginning, the divine spoke, and worlds came into being. That same creative principle operates in you now. Each time you affirm truth, you are calling forth light out of darkness, order out of chaos, health out of disease, and abundance out of lack. You are not trying to persuade some distant deity to act on your behalf. You are awakening the divine law within yourself. The spoken word is the switch that releases the power already present. The universe responds to your inner conviction, not to your outer plea. When you speak from the consciousness of oneness with God, your word carries divine authority, for it is no longer a human word but a spiritual decree. The words of the limited self are filled with fear and doubt, and they produce confusion, frustration, and struggle. But the words of the Christ mind are calm, certain, and radiant with faith. When you speak from this higher consciousness, you do not beg, you declare. You do not hope, Your word becomes a command to the invisible substance of spirit to take shape according to divine order. "Let there be light," said the Creator, and light appeared. Likewise, when you affirm, "Divine intelligence guides me," or "Perfect health is mine now," you are issuing creative decree that sets unseen forces into motion. Your responsibility is to maintain faith, to expect divine results without wavering or interference from doubt. Expectation is the secret that activates the power of the word. Words spoken without faith are like seeds thrown on barren soil. They cannot grow because the emotional energy that gives them life is missing. But when you speak and expect your words to manifest, you release the full current of divine power. Expectation is faith in motion. It is the confident assurance that the invisible law of good is working even before you can see the results. To expect divine results is not arrogance, it is obedience to spiritual law. You are affirming your trust in the eternal principle that what you sow in thought and speech, you shall surely reap in experience. Many people weaken their word by contradicting it. They pray for peace and then speak of conflict, affirm prosperity and then talk of lack, declare healing and then dwell on symptoms. This inconsistency cancels the creative charge of the word. You must guard your speech as a sacred instrument. Let every word you speak carry the vibration of truth, love, and confidence in divine order. When you say, "I can do all things through the Christ within," do not immediately doubt or discuss obstacles. Hold to your word, feel its truth. Let it sink deep into the subconscious mind, where it begins to reshape your inner pattern of belief. The subconscious is the fertile soil of creation, and your spoken word is the seed. To speak the word of power also means to speak with love. Power without love can become harsh or self-centered, but love infuses your word with healing grace. When you speak words of blessing to yourself and others, you are transmitting divine energy that uplifts and restores. Bless your work, your body, your relationships, your challenges. Say, "God's life fills this situation with harmony and good." Do not curse or condemn, for such words return to you multiplied. Instead, speak only those words that build, heal, and illuminate. The Christ mind never speaks from fear or resentment. It speaks from the awareness of divine perfection in all things. This practice of speaking the word is not confined to prayer or formal affirmation. It extends to every conversation, every thought, every inner dialogue. You are always using the power of the word, whether consciously or unconsciously. When you complain, criticize, or speak of limitation, you misuse divine energy. When you affirm truth, express gratitude, and declare peace, you use that same energy to lift your life to higher levels of good. The choice is always yours. Therefore, let your words be few but filled with light. Let them be living words, charged with the awareness that you are co-creating with God in every moment. When you begin to live by this principle, you discover that life responds swiftly to your declarations. Circumstances align themselves to match your inner conviction. Opportunities open, guidance flows, and what once seemed difficult now unfolds with ease. This is not magic. It is divine law, operating through the power of your consciousness. You begin to realize that the universe is listening to the tone of your inner word, not the words of your lips, but the feeling and belief behind them. As you align that feeling with divine certainty, miracles become natural. To speak the word of power and expect divine results is to step into your rightful authority as a spiritual being. It is to know that you are not separate from the creative word that spoke the cosmos into being. Your every affirmation, spoken in faith and love, becomes a living force that shapes reality according to the image of divine perfection. When you understand this, you no longer speak idly. You speak as one who knows that every word is sacred, every thought is a seed, and every declaration is a bridge between heaven and earth. You begin to live consciously as the voice of God expressing through you, and your word, filled with faith and expectation, never returns void. To transcend fear by affirming oneness with God is to rise above the illusions that bind the human mind and awaken to the eternal truth of your divine nature. Fear has no real existence of its own. It is merely the shadow cast by forgetfulness of who you are. When you forget your unity with the infinite presence, the world appears threatening, uncertain, and filled with lack. But the moment you remember your oneness with God, fear dissolves like mist before the rising sun. You begin to live in a state of deep assurance, knowing that the same power that governs the universe governs your life in perfect order, wisdom, and love. Fear is born of separation. When you believe yourself to be alone, cut off from divine life, dependent on external conditions, insecurity naturally follows. The limited self trembles because it feels small, vulnerable, and unprotected in a vast world. Yet the truth is that you have never been separate from the source. You live and move and have your being in God. Every breath you take is sustained by divine intelligence. Every heartbeat is the rhythm of eternal life expressing through you. Fear cannot survive in the consciousness that knows this. It feeds on ignorance, but it starves in the light of truth. Affirming oneness with God is the direct remedy for fear. Each time you say within yourself, God and I are one, you affirm the greatest truth in existence. You remind your mind that there is only one power, one presence, one life, and that this life is yours now. This affirmation is not a poetic sentiment, it is a spiritual fact. It carries a vibration that dissolves the false images of danger and limitation that fear projects. The more you affirm this truth, the more your subconscious mind begins to release its old patterns of anxiety and insecurity. You start to feel a deep, quiet confidence, arising from within, not from the outer world, but from the awareness of divine support that has always been there. To transcend fear is not to deny it, but to see through it. Fear often disguises itself as caution, concern, or logic, but beneath its many masks lies the same false belief, the belief that you are separate from divine power. When you face fear directly and affirm your oneness with God, you strip it of its illusion. You realize that nothing outside you can have power over the divine presence within you. Whether it appears as financial worry, illness, rejection, or uncertainty, fear loses its grip when you declare, "There is only one power, the power of God, and it works for my good in all things." Each declaration reinforces your inner strength, establishing a consciousness that no outer condition can shake. The Christ mind, the divine consciousness within you, knows no fear. It lives in perfect peace because it lives in the awareness of unity. When Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," he was not claiming something unique to himself, but revealing a universal truth about all humanity. The same oneness that empowered him empowers you. The same divine presence that guided him through storms, trials, and even death itself is present within you right now. To realize this is to walk through the fires of life unharmed, to move through uncertainty with serenity, and to act with power rooted in love. One of the most powerful ways to transcend fear is through constant remembrance. Whenever a fearful thought arises, stop and affirm, "God is here, and I am one with him." Feel the truth of it. Let that awareness fill every cell of your being. Do not struggle with the fear. Simply withdraw your attention from it and turn toward the presence of God within. Fear cannot stand in the face of sustained awareness of divine unity. The mind cannot hold both fear and the realization of oneness at the same time. Choose oneness, and fear fades into nothingness. Another vital practice is to fill your mind with images of divine strength and protection. Imagine yourself surrounded by a radiant light, the light of God's love encompassing you in safety and peace. Visualize this light extending outward, blessing everyone and everything around you. This visualization is not mere imagination. It is an act of faith that aligns your consciousness with the truth that divine power is everywhere present. Each time you do this, you expand your awareness of unity and further weaken the illusions that sustain fear. As you persist in affirming oneness with God, your outer life begins to reflect this inner transformation. You find yourself responding to challenges with calm wisdom rather than anxiety. Situations that once frightened you now become opportunities to express divine strength. You begin to trust the flow of life, knowing that every experience carries a hidden blessing. You walk in peace because you no longer see yourself as a small being facing a vast, hostile universe, but as a divine expression moving harmoniously within the greater whole. To transcend fear through oneness is to awaken to the realization that there is nothing to defend, nothing to lose, nothing to fear. You live in the infinite, and the infinite lives in you. The power that guides the stars guides your path. The intelligence that designed creation designs your destiny. When this awareness becomes steady and constant, fear vanishes completely. You no longer live by appearances, but by divine knowing. You become fearless, not because the world has changed, but because you now perceive through the eyes of the Christ mind, which sees only unity, perfection, and love. In this state of oneness, peace becomes your natural condition. You move through life with grace, free from anxiety and doubt, because you know that wherever you go, God goes with you. You think, speak, and act from the center of divine assurance, and your very presence becomes a calming influence to others. This is the true victory over fear, not resistance or avoidance, but complete transcendence through the realization that times I and my Father are one. Asterisk. In that sacred knowing, fear dissolves forever, and the soul stands radiant, fearless, and free in the light of divine truth. To live daily in the consciousness of victory and peace is to walk each moment with the quiet assurance that divine power is working through you, for you, and as you. It is to awaken each morning, knowing that you are not a victim of circumstance, but a vessel of infinite intelligence. The consciousness of victory is not a boastful attitude or mere positive thinking. It is a deep, unshakable awareness of oneness with God, a recognition that the outcome of every situation is already secure in divine law. Peace, in this state, is not something you strive for, but something you radiate. It flows from the still center within, where you know beyond all doubt that God reigns supreme and that nothing can oppose the divine plan of good in your life. When you live in this consciousness, every day becomes an expression of inner mastery. You no longer wake with anxiety about what may come. Instead, you awaken in gratitude, affirming that divine order governs your path. You begin the day by silently declaring, I live in the peace of God. I move in the power of the Christ within. Victory is already mine. These affirmations are not empty words, but spiritual decrees that set the tone for the day. They align your mind with truth before the noise of the outer world can intrude. When your consciousness is anchored in divine peace, you carry an atmosphere of calm wherever you go. People sense it. Circumstances bend to it. Life begins to mirror the serenity you hold within. Living in the consciousness of victory means you no longer measure success by appearances. Outer events may shift and change, but your inner knowing remains steady. You understand that divine intelligence cannot fail. Even apparent setbacks are seen as steps in a greater pattern of fulfillment. When others see obstacles, you see opportunities for God to reveal more of His power. This shift in perception is the hallmark of a victorious mind. It does not deny the existence of challenges, but views them from the mountaintop of faith, where every difficulty is a disguised blessing and every delay a divine rearrangement for something greater. Peace and victory are born from the same awareness, the awareness that God is the only presence and power in your life. When you truly know this, fear, confusion, and doubt have no place to rest. You no longer react to the outer world with panic or resistance. Instead, you respond with calm wisdom, guided by the inner voice of spirit. You begin to see that life itself is not against you. It is for you, always conspiring for your highest good. This understanding transforms your relationships, your work, and even your health. The energy of peace strengthens the body, clears the mind, and magnetizes harmony into every area of life. To maintain this consciousness daily requires spiritual discipline. Just as the body must be nourished with food, the soul must be nourished with truth. Spend time each day in quiet reflection, prayer, or meditation. Withdraw from the clamor of the world and enter the secret place of the Most High within you. In that stillness, feel the divine presence surrounding you like a cloak of light. Let peace fill your heart until it overflows. From that center of serenity, affirm quietly, God is my life, God is my strength, God is my victory. Carry that feeling with you into every task, every conversation, every challenge. When you do this consistently, peace becomes your natural state rather than a temporary experience. The consciousness of victory does not depend on outer results, it creates them. As you hold steadfast to your divine identity, life aligns itself with your inner conviction. The subconscious mind, impressed with the idea of triumph, begins to attract conditions that correspond to that belief. People, opportunities, and resources appear seemingly by coincidence, yet in truth, they are drawn by spiritual law. You do not need to struggle or force outcomes. You simply remain faithful to your awareness of divine success, and the universe responds in kind. Living in the consciousness of peace also means releasing the need to control. The limited self wants to manage every detail, fearing what might happen if it lets go. But peace comes when you surrender completely to divine guidance, trusting that infinite wisdom knows the way. You no longer resist what is, you flow with it, confident that every step is leading you closer to your highest good. This surrender is not weakness, it is strength born of faith. The waves may rise, but you remain anchored in the calm depths of the spirit. You may walk through storms, but within, the sea is still. This state of consciousness transforms even the smallest acts of daily life. You answer a phone call, speak a kind word, or complete your work, all with a sense of divine purpose and ease. You begin to notice synchronicities, moments of grace, doors opening effortlessly. You no longer chase peace or victory. They unfold naturally as the reflection of your inner state. Others may look at your life and call it blessed, not realizing that what they see outwardly is simply the manifestation of an inward truth, the truth that God is all, and that you live in harmony with that allness. To live daily in the consciousness of victory and peace is to be spiritually awake. It is to walk through life as a living testament of divine order, radiating assurance, even in uncertain times. You become an instrument through which God's calm and confidence bless the world. When others are troubled, your presence brings comfort. When others doubt, your faith inspires. You do not preach peace, you embody it. You do not seek victory, you express it. Every breath becomes a silent affirmation. All is well, for God is here. This is the secret of the Christ mind, to live each day anchored in divine awareness, undisturbed by appearances, unshaken by change, and undefeated by circumstance. It is to rest in the eternal truth that the victory has already been won in spirit, and peace is the everlasting reality of your being. When you live from this consciousness, you rise above fear, limitation, and uncertainty. You walk as a master of life, serene in heart, steady in faith, radiant in spirit, and your every step proclaims the living truth. Asterisk, I am one with God, and therefore, I live in victory and peace forever. Asterisk, my beloved friends, as we come to the close of this sacred reflection on times, the mind of Christ, unlock divine thinking, and transcend every limitation. Asterisk. Let us pause and remember the eternal truth that has been whispered through every word we have shared. Asterisk. Asterisk. You are not a limited being, struggling to reach the divine. You are a divine being, learning to remember your own infinity. Asterisk, asterisk. The mind of Christ is not distant, not hidden, not reserved for saints or sages. It is the radiant intelligence already alive within you, waiting for your recognition. When you awaken to the divine presence within, the world begins to change because you begin to see differently. You no longer look through the eyes of fear, but through the eyes of faith. You no longer think from the limited self, but from the infinite that knows no boundaries. You renew your mind through the sacred power of imagination, shaping your world from divine substance rather than from appearances. You learn to speak the creative word with authority, expecting divine results, not because of pride, but because you trust in divine law. You transcend fear by affirming your oneness with God, walking in quiet confidence through every valley and every storm. And finally, you live daily in the consciousness of victory and peace, anchored in the knowing that the presence of God goes before you, prepares your way, and works all things together for good. This, my friends, is not just philosophy, it is the living practice of divine consciousness. The mind of Christ is the key that unlocks every door, the light that dissolves every shadow, the power that transforms every condition. When you claim it as your own, you rise above limitation and move into a life of effortless grace. You stop struggling to make things happen and begin allowing the infinite intelligence within you to unfold its perfect plan. You cease asking, "Can it be done?" and begin knowing it is already done in spirit. So as you leave this moment, take with you a new awareness that wherever you stand, God stands. Wherever you go, the light of Christ goes with you. Let every thought be a prayer of truth, every word a seed of creation, every act a reflection of divine love. Let your life be a living demonstration of the Christ mind, in action, serene, powerful, creative, and free. And when challenges arise, as they surely will, remember this truth. The same power that guided Jesus, the same wisdom that formed the stars, lives and moves through you now. You need not beg or struggle. You need only align your thought with the infinite, and divine order will reveal itself. Go forth, then, in the full consciousness of your divine inheritance. Think the thoughts of God, speak the words of life, live from the peace that passes all understanding. For you are one with the mind of Christ, and in that oneness there are no limits, no obstacles, no fears. There is only the eternal light of divine perfection shining through you, as you, for the glory of God and the blessing of all.